Hey everybody, welcome to the faith stories of Our Savior's Lutheran Church. Today I get to talk with Alex Fenske about his faith. Alex and his wife Carissa have been members of Our Savior's for 3 or 4 years, and they were married in this church about 2.5 years ago. Alex is one of those guys that I geek out with quite often, and he's one of those people who I always know will run the clicker for the PowerPoint during worship. But today, we get to talk about his faith and where God is leading him. So thanks for joining us, Alex. So our first question that we have for you is, who has been influential in your faith story?
Well, it definitely started with my mother. I grew up just with my mother. She was a single parent, and religion was a huge thing in her growing up, and she wanted it to make a big part of my life when I grew up. Nice. So for the most part, we kind of hopped around a lot of churches. Mm-hmm. I would say God kind of led us to each of the different areas that we needed to go. We would stay in a church for a couple years at a time, and whenever there was a message that either she or I needed to hear, we ended up going to that church, even if it was a 2-hour, 3-hour drive. Just a couple years back, we went to Omaha, Nebraska for a healing service because my mother needed to hear it.
Sure. That's a really healthy attitude, to be able to seek God where you need to find God. Nice. So, you're talking about a healing service. Has there ever been a time in your life that you've needed to call on your faith for guidance?
A lot of people might not know this. I know that you do, but December of 2018, I was basically diagnosed with a death sentence of brain cancer in the 3rd degree. And at that point, I had a few options. I could either accept what they're telling me and just go through the medicine and hope that I just get better through that, or turn to God and know that He is there to help me. And I chose the latter. I decided to look at the positives. God made sure that in the 10 years that the cancer was growing in my brain, I didn't show a single symptom. He made sure that this cancer that is more prevalent in 65-year-old men and is a life sentence of 5 years when you get it, I'm still here today. I still have no symptoms. My doctors do MRIs every 3 months, and every time they seem a little more shocked at how much it has healed and progressed and reversed itself. And I thank God every day for that. Well, I definitely had to look for Him to get me through that time.
I know you've been an inspiration for me, because that's an unbelievable thing to have to deal with, but it's good to know that you've got that faith that even in a terrible situation you can find some hope, find some peace in that. That's really good. So next up, we've got, do you have a favorite Bible verse or Bible story?
I was reading these questions last night, trying to figure out answers to them. And looking back into it, I just kept thinking of a couple different stories that really resonated with me, just for numerous reasons. One of which is the story of, I believe it is Elisha and the widow woman.
Oh, yeah.
With her pots of oil that she is just in absolute dire need. And Elisha just tells her to go grab as many pots as you can, borrow from your neighbors, anyone. And as soon as she started pouring her oil, it kept pouring. Mm-hmm. And another story that also kind of stuck with me, and I don't even know why, is Solomon and the 2 mothers.
Oh, sure.
with the one child, just of the wisdom that he had. Because my mother always talked about how Solomon was the wisest man in the world, basically proclaimed by God to be the wisest person. And truthfully, it was just interesting to see one of his wise moments, because when you think of wisdom given by God, it would be more heavenly, or like more not as cruel.
Right.
Instead, less about cutting babies in half.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you just see like God works in mysterious ways. Like stuff is just so interesting in just how it's retold in the old Bible.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that is really interesting, just because you are a storyteller. You're getting a creative writing degree.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's got to be kind of cool to see some of these stories and think about different ways that they could be interpreted, and different ways you could possibly use these as inspiration. That's nice. Two strange stories, but you're a strange guy, so that's okay. I can say that because we're friends.
You can. I'll allow it.
Okay, you'll allow it.
You don't even have to edit it out.
Okay, fine. So the last question we have is, what does prayer mean to you? And do you have a favorite time or place to pray?
Well, for the most part, what prayer means to me, as well as a time or place, it all depends on the reason I'm praying. I am definitely not being boastful about it, but I oftentimes am called to pray for healing for either my mother or my wife or friends that I feel need it. And at that time, that is the time I need to pray. Or at night, I usually feel a need to just thank God for the things that He has given me through the day or the upcoming events.
Right.
I don't entirely have a go-to prayer by any means, but if I were, it always starts off with thanking before asking. And if it's a prayer for healing, probably I have it here on my phone, but my favorite verse that I almost always start off with is, "For where two or more gather in my name, there I am with them."
Nice.
Because there is nothing stronger to God than when more people gather in His name,
Right.
asking for the same thing, asking for healing or forgiveness,
Right.
and that's how I view prayer. I view it as a necessity,
Nice.
but also as something to use to thank God rather than always be asking.
That's really good. That's better than my answer to prayer, so I like that a lot. Well, thanks for sitting down with us, Alex, and thanks for sharing a bit of your faith story, and thanks for being a part of Our Saviors.
Of course.